I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you're listening to Hard Knock Life.
Well, it's the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard Knock Life, comics, movies, and TV, yeah.
Welcome to Hard Knock Life. I'm Keith Chow.
I'm Britney Monet.
I'm Dominic Ma.
And we are stoked that Darth Vader is here already. Were you expecting... Oh, by the way, spoilers for Obi-Wan Kenobi. I've lost half of our listeners already.
Yeah, come on. You knew Darth Vader was going to show up eventually. Is that a huge spoiler?
Well, did we know it would be this early, is my question.
So he would catch you by surprise. Darth Vader wanted it that way.
I didn't think they would meet this early, but I thought we would definitely get, like, Vader at least interacting with the Inquisitors. So that part wasn't new to me, but him actually showing up and having somewhat of a, as we know as the episode progresses, mini saber fight with him, I didn't see that coming. That was definitely, I was like, oh, okay.
We're doing this now.
Yeah.
I like how you characterize it as a mini saber fight, implying that we weren't... here's some mega saber fight that we may be hoping for in the future.
I feel like this was like, I don't know, equivalent to a mid-season, like they kind of see each other, but it's not the full actual, like, big fight,
Here's a proposal that I think could happen that'll make all of the toxic fanboys happy. Mm-hmm. What if this is the Vader Obi-Wan fight, and that the true finale is Reva Obi-Wan? And that's how the show actually ends. That it leads up to like the big confrontation between Reva and Obi-Wan.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool, but I think that would also piss off all of the fanboys who are already pissed off that Reva exists.
They're already review bombing because they called out like people being racist and yeah.
Let's talk about that for a second, because we didn't really touch on the just absolute. I mean, I think partly is when we recorded, it wasn't as apparent. Like, we knew that there was always going to be like asshole Star Wars fans who were just going to hate people of color for existing. But, after our show went out, Moses posted on Instagram about like the vile messages she's been receiving. And even Ewan came out in support. The Star Wars like official account came out in support. Anson Mount, fucking Star Trek, came out in support. Like talk about unifying the fan bases. Like Star Trek came out for Star Wars.
So did William Shatner, actually.
Oh wow, yeah. So like this is not new, especially in Star Wars fandom, especially like in the post Disney, post sequel trilogy Star Wars fandom. The ugliness definitely came out with like Force Awakens. It came out with Last Jedi, and it's reared its head again. What do we think about that? Like, what is it? It's unique to Star Wars fandom? It just feels like there's always assholes in fandom, but it just feels like the Star Wars fandom comes out, like members of the Star Wars fandom just come out in droves more.
I feel like it has such a bigger reach, and I think for some reason to Star Wars fans, they feel that it was always just more of a white thing, when it erases the fact that there have been fans of color from like the beginning of Star Wars being released. And I feel like maybe because they were, nerds for the longest time was only depicted as being white people, and especially white men, that I think that there's still this very weird, like, trying to realize that, nerds of color have been there for a long time. I don't know. I think because when you have, like, one of the only main characters in the original trilogy kind of being a traitor, I think kind of had also maybe, unfortunately, like, feeds to certain stereotypes in a way.
Wait, which one are you talking about?
Like Lando.
Well,
yeah.
He was a traitor, and then he redeems himself in the next one.
Yeah, but I just feel like, in a way that kind of fuels some type of, like, stereotypes. And then when you have newer characters of color who aren't, like, playing basically servants to senators and stuff, that it's kind of, like, I don't know, weird for them and feels like it's not true. And that, but it's like, what they said is true, is that Star Wars is a vast galaxy full of different people and different alien races, and to be racist as a Star Wars fan is kind of weird.
Yeah, like the Imperials were always like British white guys. Kind of like that was a way of showing that like there is no diversity in the Empire. Like the Empire wipes out like any kind of like alien races because they just want British white guys as the face of the Empire, right? And that's Like, they are the fascists. The rebels are the anti-fascists. Like, that's been baked into Star Wars from 1977.
Yeah.
Well, I try not to take it too strongly. I mean, racism in the fan base is a big deal. But I mean, if your course of action is review bomb on Rotten Tomatoes, like, I definitely don't give a shit. Like, fucking Rotten Tomato, come on. Okay, is that your big move? Oh no, bad review on Rotten Tomatoes. Whatever. But yeah, the possessiveness over it is a little disturbing, and that sister character, the Reva character, does break a mold. It's not standard that the red saber wielding baddie is the black lady, but I mean, that's that's cool. The weird thing, like, a bad reaction to, like, any deviation from type is just like that's the weird excessive behavior going on.
And this is an echo of The Force Awakens, when the very first trailer, the first thing we see is John Boyega in his stormtrooper outfit. Because remember, we didn't know anything about the movie until the trailer. And the initial reaction from that section of the fan base was that hashtag Black Stormtrooper and boycott Star Wars, because it doesn't make any sense that a stormtrooper would be black. As if, like, again, if it's weird for you that blackness exists in a galaxy far, far away, why is whiteness just normal? Unless it goes back to the old adage of, like, white is default and everything else is not, And that's where these people are coming from, is that, like, it's not like Han Solo's not white, Luke Skywalker's not white, they're just regular. The weird thing is seeing black skin or Asian people. Like, there's no Asia in space. Like, the fuck, there's no Europe in space either, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in a sense, Darth Vader is not white either. I mean, in his
the classic
soul.
scene from Chasing Amy, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of Darth Vader being a black character, were you surprised James Earl Jones kind of, sort of came back as the voice of Darth Vader?
I wasn't surprised because he did Rebels and
Rogue One.
Yeah, and they kept asking Hayden, like, are you doing the voice or is it James? And he's like, I don't know, you'll have to see. So I was like, oh.
Who else is going to do it? Come on.
Yeah, but someone did say that it might be the AI thing that they use for Mark Hamill's younger voice, and it's a mix of actually Hayden and that AI of, like, James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But it sounds more like James than Hayden, so. Because
I know that the first time I watched the episode and Vader spoke and it was James Earl Jones' voice, I did think to myself, like, wow, he sounds a lot better than he did in Rebels and Rogue One, because James Earl Jones did come back to actually in the booth to voice those roles. I said this before, my ageism. I was like, he sounded a little old in Rogue One. He didn't sound like the, youthful Darth Vader. But Vader in this episode definitely sounded like 1977 James Earl Jones. And I think you're right. Like, some folks on Twitter pointed out that there's a credit to the technology, the same credit that was in The Mandalorian, or not The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, same thing. That was credited for Luke Skywalker's AI voice. So I think you're right. It is a mix. I think there was even someone pointed out that the scene where Vader says, "I am what you made me," you actually hear hate. That's actually Hayden saying it through like a Darth Vader filter. So yeah, it's interesting that the technology exists to make anyone sound like Darth Vader. Then you can have that character live in perpetuity now. As long as James Earl Jones' estate gets paid for it, I think that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's going down a weird path. It's true. That is the path we're going on. He was credited,
though, by the way.
Yeah, right. Everyone will be regenerated by computers, but it's like James Earl Jones adds a lot of class in any sense.
Yeah,
I mean, he makes the character. Let's not get away from that.
Yeah, so we just jumped into it. We didn't even warm up and know how you doing. We just went straight into Obi-Wan.
It was a good episode.
Episode 3.
Three halfway through the show, we've gotten pretty much everything you could have imagined in a Obi-Wan show, right? Like the confrontation with Darth, the whole plot with Leia, seeing Indira Varma, be a good guy disguised, or she wasn't even disguised as an Imperial. She was an Imperial, but she was a rebel sympathizer. Let's just back up and think about the episode in total. Like, what did we think aside from the Darth Vader stuff? Because everyone loves that. But like the interaction with Leia and Obi-Wan, the Zach Braff alien character that was driving the pickup truck.
Oh, I thought that was Seth Rogen.
No, that was Zach. He sounded like Seth Rogen, but Zach Braff was the mole man. The stormtrooper, like aside from the Vader stuff, I really liked the stormtroopers in the back of the pickup. Because even in Rogue One, there's something about like what I loved about Rogue One and what I love about this show so far is just kind of seeing what it's like to live during the Empire and, you know, just kind of like the day-to-day stuff. Like there's a scene in Rogue One where like a stormtrooper is just like sitting on a bench with his like arms on his hips, just kind of like tired. And it's like, you never think of like stormtroopers as these like regular kind of people. And even the way that they're interacting in the back of the truck, like the tension, the way Deborah Chow directed it, Ewan's performance when he's like reminiscing about Padme again.
Oh, that was so good.
Yeah, let's just talk about that. Like, what do you think of that whole scene on the mining planet?
I loved it. I know there's a lot of people now who have always been Obi-Dala shippers are now like feeling vindicated because of when she asks, "Are you my real father?" and he says, "No, I wish I was."
Yeah, and I kind of felt like a million shippers, you know, just
crying out
through the floor, crying out.
No, but I loved that whole scene because I don't know, it was just Ewan. We always know has been a great actor, but it was just done so well when he's like doing that. I get confused sometimes, and he played that off so well. Like I don't know, it was good, and I love Vivian. Is that her name? Who plays Leia? She's so good. She's so adorable, too.
I did think, like, that's quite an observant stormtrooper, because, like, hey, you said your name was Luma. I don't know what your name is, motherfucker.
I like that part because the way they get on the truck is, like, you know, first Obi-Wan is like, keep silence, keep stealthy. And then she, like, runs towards the truck, which it just tugs away, because that's, like, a bad idea that she runs to the truck, but it's exactly the kind of bad idea a kid would have. Right, It's very kid impulsive thing to do. Like, we're caught in the desert. Oh, there's a truck. That person will help us because I'm cute and young and I don't know any better. We're just gonna hail this random truck. So that was, you know, that was perfect to me. I mean, I think the whole plot is a little oddly constructed, I'd say right now. They're like basically train hopping between planets. It seems like really didn't have much of a plan to get home after rescuing Leia and all that stuff, and creates this weird thing of just being on this random planet, walking around basically looking for a clue. But that's okay, I get it, because it sets up this sort of like, you know, alone in the wilderness, you know, bonding time, which I think is necessary for this relationship to grow.
Kumail Nanjiani, turns out he was being truthful about, like, he's helping. Maybe he really is helping Force-sensitive children. He's just kind of getting a cut on the top, right? Like, the family he saved before he met Obi-Wan in the previous episode. I was wondering, like, is he really, like, saving Force-sensitive children? Or is he just, like, conning these people, telling them they're Force-sensitive to get, you know? But that's just a weird, like, yeah, now that I say it out loud, it's kind of weird. Like, what parent would be like, my kid is potentially a Jedi, get us out of here, you know?
Yeah.
But it turns out, like, he really is part of this, like, underground railroad of Jedi network, because the Indira Varma character is who he was talking about, because she was the one who was going to meet him. Preeti Chibber said on Twitter the other day, like, you know, A New Hope would not have happened if not for all of these South Asian people in Star Wars. So take that, racist motherfuckers.
Right.
Kumail Nanjiani, Indira Varma, and Riz Ahmed are the reasons
right
that A New Hope even happens.
They're the pipeline. And do we think it was interesting that you said that, you know, I joined up for the Empire back when it stood for something? It's like, oh, that's interesting. It's sort of a deep comment.
There's a lot of books that, at least like if you read the Lost Stars book, it kind of sets up where the Empire played off as being great and that they were, you know, this wonderful thing that was going to set the galaxy right. And a lot of people fell for it. And the main character in that book, she joined because she felt that it was like a sense of duty to like her galaxy and to do this. And she's actually a good person and like a loving person. And that's not what we know what the Empire actually is not something that she would stand for. But then a lot of people seem to be stuck because it's like, well, I promised myself that I would do this and this is my duty. And it kind of ends up biting her in the butt if you read the book.
I mean, if you think about it, even in A New Hope, right? Like, Luke and Biggs, when they talk about going to the academy, there's not a rebel academy. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I guess they are.
They're signing up to join the military. So, I mean, anyone who's in the Air Force or the, you know, I know we're a few days out from Memorial Day, but like, you know, if you're signing up for the Marines, you're signing up for the Army, and then you're marching into Iraq, it's kind of like, oh, this is not what I signed up for, you know, or you're marching into Vietnam to make it more of the George Lucas era, what he's commenting on. Like, you know, we were the Empire. We still are the Empire. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And even, you know, Solo is joining up with the Empire at the beginning of his movie that we rarely talk about, but he does do that at the beginning because that's the way of the town. That's the ticket.
Yeah.
So I get that.
For us non-extended universe folks, were you excited, Brittany, when there was mention of Quinlan Vos in this episode?
Yes. I still have the book. I haven't read it, but I have the book where it's based on unproduced episodes of Clone Wars with him and Ventress. They go off on their, you know, adventures. We kind of know where they left off kind of on the show. So I was excited that he was mentioned because maybe we'll see him.
Who is that?
Explain to Dominic who Quinlan Vos is.
So he's like the hippie. If you watch the Clone Wars, he's like the hippie Jedi that kind of annoys Obi-Wan a little bit.
Okay.
But, you know, I think because of how things turned out, obviously Obi-Wan was like, oh, Quinlan. Like, he was happy that someone he kind of knew from the Order is, like, out and alive. So yeah, Quinlan Vos is really cool hippie Jedi guy, basically.
Cool hippie
Like,
Jedi.
that's the best way to, I don't know, it's the best way to describe him as
righteous.
He's kind of, yeah.
So how many Jedi do you estimate are out there? Because, like, for the longest time, everyone just assumed Yoda and Obi-Wan are the only Jedi who survived Order 66. And then the more, you know, in-canon stuff comes out, we know that, like, Kanan Jarrus survived. Yes. Cal Kestis survived. Now Quinlan Vos has survived. Ahsoka Tano survived.
Yeah. Well, she was no longer a Jedi, actually, if you remember. She was just Force-sensitive at this point.
You know what I mean.
Yeah. I know what you mean. But then it would be, to an extent, Luminara survived Order 66 because she was eventually captured, and she was the one who was used to, like, her hologram of her was used to get Ezra to go there to try and rescue her. So she survived to an extent as well. I don't know who else.
I mean, let me put it, does it make it... Well, and there's also that Safdie brother Jedi from the first episode.
Yes.
Does it make Obi-Wan and Yoda look worse off, though, that, like, all these folks survived and they're, like, helping other Jedi get across the galaxy, and Obi-Wan's like, I'm just going to cut whale sashimi, and Yoda's like, I'm just going to be on this swamp over here, like, eating shit out of a droid. Like, what, like, does it kind of diminish them to know that, like, they're not helping this network of Jedi survive?
I think so, but at the same time, it just shows how much the stuff with Anakin shattered them, because they knew Anakin, and they were supposed to keep him from, in a way, going to the dark side, and they kind of, in a way, stirred him there, you know? Mm-hmm. And so that makes them feel like failures, you know?
Yeah.
Especially someone like Yoda, who's been doing this for 800 years and has probably never really had someone go down that path in such a big way, that I think it's very, like, makes you want to kind of maybe not interact with people and feel like you're not worthy of that. So,
and that would be the second one too, because wasn't Dooku his Padawan too?
Yeah.
Like, Yoda sucks.
Like I told you in the High Republic books, he's always on a sabbatical.
Right. Like that professor that you can't reach at your college to advise you. But yeah, I mean, on that point, I mean, I agree with that, and I think it's sort of the core emotional thing of this series, which is called Obi-Wan Kenobi, and is about Obi-Wan Kenobi, but so far it's a lot about him feeling bad about shit, right? I mean, and I think that's something, I mean, I think that's what they're going for, and we can debate over whether it works or not, but that feeling of being totally shattered. And, you know, as a middle-aged Star Wars fan who's looking back on all these things, like, you know, the part that resonates for me most for the first episode is when he's just like, I'm not what I once was. And you know, because, you know, if we can say anything about those prequels, I mean, I do remember them as, you know, Ewan McGregor had the swagger, right? He was like the guy who's like, let's go. Oh yeah, Darth Maul, yeah, let's fight some more. Oh, I'm gonna go fight Django. Dad fed now. Like he was like the swashbuckling type. So to see him in this state, I think is what they're really trying to examine, that for better or for worse. And even in this thing of like, so he meets up with Vader, and like maybe some of us in a fan sense thinks, oh, there's going to be a big fight, but like this is his friend who he's already mutilated once, and he thought he killed him and doesn't want to kill him again. I mean, like, it so he just runs away. And, it's like a cliche in action movies where, like, the righteous hero says, like, no, I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight. But they always end up fighting. There was something poignant about how this case, he didn't want to fight. He really didn't want to fight. And he literally just started to run away. I think about that part. Sorry, that was a bit
No, I actually love that because, like, there's a really, iconic scene when Vader confronts him and he ignites the lightsaber slowly, kind of mirroring what he does in the first movie, in A New Hope, where Obi-Wan comes around the corner and Vader's there with his lightsaber. But to your point, Obi-Wan runs away, and there's a scene where he holds the hilt and you think, oh shit, this is where it comes, and he runs away. And then only later, like, instinctively does he ignite his lightsaber in a defensive posture to go back to what you're saying. Like, he's never, like, there's never a killing blow. It's all defense. And what I found was really interesting is that Obi-Wan is using two hands the entire time, struggling because he hasn't used a lightsaber, and Vader's just like one-handed.
Yeah.
Like he's at his prime right now, and that whole sequence was so riveting, but also emotional. Because one thing that I think that sets this series apart from all the other Star Wars series on Disney Plus so far, including Mandalorian and Boba Fett, is that no shade to Pedro Pascal, who's like, you only see his face twice anyway, and no shade to Tamira Morrison, but Ewan McGregor acts the shit out of this whole series. Like, that sense of longing, that sense of defeat, that PTSD he's suffering from once he learns that Anakin's alive. Like we were saying earlier about him reminiscing about Padme, like that whole sequence where he's talking to Luma, aka Leia. Every choice, every performance that Ewan gives in this whole series is, I know he's not going to get an Emmy for it, but goddamn, that motherfucker is acting.
Yeah, no, he really is. And I remember him in an interview saying, like, it was actually scary just to turn around and see Hayden in the suit for the first time and as Darth Vader. So, and you could really, like, see that, like, maybe it is a little bit terrifying to see someone in that suit in person. But yeah, they did that so well. And then the part with the fire, I was just like, ugh. I don't know. I was very in my feels. It was so good.
Let me ask you, like, I know that some folks have been, there's some consternation around how easy it was for Obi-Wan to get away. But let me ask you, Brittany, like, do you think that Vader let him get away? Because, like,
maybe
when Indira's character, Tala, I think is her name, when she shoots the thing and the flames come up, Vader's like, ah, but like 5 seconds ago, bro, you just doused the flames with the Force.
I think because he controlled the flame, so it was different because he was in control. But when it happened out of his control, it probably scared him because he hates
fire.
Yeah,
he hates fire as much as he hates sand.
Yeah, exactly. He's probably gonna hate fire and sand now, even though he's
and he's in the middle of the desert on fire. He's like, this is the worst thing of all possibilities.
So yeah, I mean, it's probably different when he can control it versus when he can't, and so it did probably scare. Yeah, I could see that, scaring him. Maybe he did let them get away easier, but maybe now that he knows for sure that Obi-Wan, it's kind of also ignited his like, I'm gonna go after him for real and like get him, like,
The other thing about the Vader Obi-Wan fight that I think was underappreciated is just how well it was directed. I think this might even, maybe this is technology they used in the sequels, but I love the fact that it feels like they're using actual, like, lighted lightsabers on set, because the light that they give off onto, like, Ewan's face, the blue light. Mm-hmm. I think in the prequels it was all kind of manufactured because, like, all of that came in afterwards. But I don't know, just the way that the fight scene was lit by the lightsabers, and naturally lit, not just in post-production, I just thought was beautiful.
All I know is that Ewan said the lightsabers, he missed the lightsabers that they used on the prequels, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I don't know what these ones are that they're using now, but the way he made it sound was like they had better lightsabers on set for the prequels versus what they have right now.
Well, maybe he was making a funny because he's nostalgic for those ones. But I mean, yeah. And I won't say that I know, Keith, and I know exactly what you're talking about. But I will say that, yeah, post lighting effect technology has advanced leaps and bounds since the 20 years. So they could be doing anything. But the important thing is that they're going for a certain effect, and they achieved it. And it's a sort of horror movie visceral effect, which they got because, yeah, it's really dark out there in the desert. And it's just your lightsabers, your only friend, and the thing showing off your sweat and your fear.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought about, we were talking about Obi-Wan running away, and it's, nice to see this, like, the emotion and stuff. Because, again, what does Yoda say in the prequels? Like, fear is the path to the dark side, right? Like, it's weird to see a Jedi of Obi-Wan's caliber succumbing to his own fear and his own guilt, right? Because those are things Jedi aren't supposed to feel. And that's, one thing I do wish that, like, the sequels would have explored more, which I think they wanted to, and especially, like, with The Last Jedi, is the kind of, like, dogma of the Jedi not being correct, right? And, like, everyone needs a little bit of dark and light in them to be truly balanced. And that's what, like, Kylo represents. That was what Rey could have represented. They kind of, like, threw that all away in Rise of Skywalker, but that's kind of where it felt like it was leading. Yeah. And that's ultimately what I think. They did say that the next batch of Star Wars movies are going to be post Force Awakens. So what I'm hoping is that, like, they do kind of reconcile that aspect of the Jedi. That the failure of the Jedi Order was its dogma and its, like, strict adherence to dogma. And that's how they failed Anakin ultimately,
I was going to ask, can we circle back and talk about, do you think Reva really just wants to be the Grand Inquisitor? Is that her big end game, or I still feel there's something else going on there? It's a very interesting scene when they're talking at that weird water palace that the Empire have.
And that's from the video game, right? Did you play Fallen Order?
I don't play the video games.
Yeah, apparently in Fallen Order is the first time we see the Inquisitorium. That's what it's called.
Oh.
And it's this castle underwater where the Inquisitors are.
I will confess I played that game, was not very good at it, and I didn't get to that part. But by the way, but that does relate to, spoiler for the video game, when Darth Vader shows up, you just run away.
Yeah.
Anyway, but blah, blah, blah. Back to the Reva and Darth Vader conversation. Interesting scene.
No, I think she has something against the Jedi for sure. Because also they have the Jedi insignia carved into the wall when she's looking through the, like, who all wrote on the wall and stuff. And she stops at the Jedi insignia. And then she gets mad and starts, like, breaking shit, basically. So, yeah, she definitely has it out against the Jedi. I don't know if she wants to be Grand Inquisitor, but I think her main goal is to get some type of payback for her being abandoned when she was a youngling. I think that's what her main thing is. I think maybe to the other Inquisitors, I think that's her goal is to become Grand Inquisitor, but I don't think that's what they want.
That's what Sung Kang wants. Sung wants to be the next Grand Inquisitor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the story of the Inquisitors too, is that, like, they're always, like, kind of, like, out for each other and trying to, like, one up one another. Because, one way that these, I keep calling it the extended universe. It's not the extended universe because it's all canon, but, like, I think what the comics and the video games and the animation is trying to, like, they're essentially explaining the whole rule of two from the prequels, because to me it always didn't make any sense. Like, why only one apprentice, one master? It's like, it just seems like you would want more numbers. If there's 1 million Jedi, wouldn't 2 Sith be kind of like, and it's because
what was that about?
Well, that's because what powers the Sith is, like, ambition. And if you ever had more than one apprentice, they'd all be trying to kill each other to get to be the next main bad guy. So, like, the Inquisitor, like, Vader kind of oversees the Inquisitors, and they purposefully train the Inquisitors to a certain point because they don't want them to be fully versed in the dark side, because if they were, then they would challenge Vader's place as the apprentice to Palpatine. And there's this whole, like, kind of, like, greed and ambition kind of layer to the Inquisitors. Because what I think is interesting too, and maybe they mentioned this in Rebels, I don't remember, Brittany, like, do we know why the Inquisitors all die off before A New Hope? Is it just that, like, they've killed all the Jedi and they don't need them anymore?
Or have they all killed each other?
Or they all killed each other? Well, I mean, a bunch of them die in Rebels, I know that. Yeah,
a bunch of them do die in Rebels, but it could just be, eventually there's no need for them by the time you get closer to A New Hope, or they all just were killed.
Yeah, because, I mean, you have to also think, like, Obi-Wan perhaps is gearing up for this big confrontation with either Reva or Vader or both. But at the same time, it's got to also end in failure because he can't defeat Vader, right? And then they do have to end up being the last two Jedi, right? Like Yoda and Obi-Wan. Like, I don't think Quinlan's running around in the original trilogy. I don't think all of these surviving Jedi are running around, other than Ahsoka. Apparently, she's still around in Mandalorian time. But like, we don't know that these other Cal Kestis is probably not around anymore. Like, all these other surviving Jedis have to go away so that Yoda and Obi-Wan are the last ones. And we're like, Luke is our only hope. No, Leia. Well, you forgot about Leia, Obi-Wan. Remember the girl you rescued?
I mean, this is a small point. I don't think that really holds. I think the Jedi can still be just hiding out somewhere, because as we know from watching this episode, people don't even know what the Jedi looks like, because there isn't, like, they can hide apparently pretty well.
Why wouldn't they reemerge when Luke like defeats the Empire, right? Like, because they're not even around in the sequels. It's just Luke is the only Jedi. He's the last Jedi.
I would feel like maybe they just, some of them don't have hope or the will to want to be a Jedi anymore. So that's the only thing I can think of. Like, they lost. Because
at the beginning of New Hope, shit is bad. You know what I mean? Like, that's and Obi-Wan has to lead into, like, you know, Rebels and Rogue One, where shit is bad. Like, it gets to a point where, like, the only hope that the rebellion has is this long shot. Leia reaches out to the guy who rescued her 10 years previous, right? That was the whole plan. Like, Luke wasn't part of the plan. The plan was get Obi-Wan to help us defeat the Empire, and Obi-Wan just happened to be babysitting Luke at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sort of bothered me how, like, sorry, on this purely technical aspect, how, like, no one knows what Obi-Wan looks like, even though Reva just put out, like, an all-points bulletin on
that was a little weird.
Back on that planet.
Stormtroopers are stupid, I think.
Stormtroopers are stupid. They're not that good at their job. And as we know from Rogue One, file transfer speed in Star Wars universe is a really big problem, because it takes, like, an hour to get that one Death Star PDF out, you know, from ship to ship, because the distances are really long. So I get it. It's not the same thing. Just like, you know, send out to, this is the guy we're looking for. It's supposed to have to send a probe droid who's like, and all other stormtroopers are like, oh, we're looking for these two people. No idea. Anyway,
we're looking for a wandering guy and a little girl. Have you seen them?
Right. But as I said,
but these are the same people. Remember in the original trilogy, like, oh, door's locked. Move on to the next. Like, all you have to do is lock the door.
So combined with stormtroopers just, like, not really caring. Like, they don't know how to use their smartphones or whatever they have.
Yeah.
I had only another stupid technical question, which is that, do all the Inquisitors get the cool, like, whirly fan lightsaber, or just the grand one?
No, they all do, because they fly. It's like the penguin. They start spinning,
and they fly
away. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they can fly with them, and Rebels, at least. I don't know that they've maybe they haven't figured it out in Obi-Wan Kenobi, but in Rebels, it starts spinning, and then they take off like Penguin with his umbrella copter.
Ah, damn. Well, we got to see that.
Yeah, I'm hoping. So let's take a break, and then after the break, let's just think about what we want to see in this next 3 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then what lies in the future of the Star Wars universe. Guess what? Goalie Nutrition is sponsoring Hard Knock Life, and you can go to goalie.com to buy apple cider vinegar gummies, they're ashwagandha gummies, superfruit gummies, and super greens gummies, and you get 10% off plus free shipping if you use the code HARDKNOCK at goalie.com. This is honestly, I've been taking the goalie gummies now for a couple weeks, and I have to say, they're tasty and they're good for you. Have you guys been enjoying the goalie gummies?
I really like them. They're yummy, but it's a nice to add to my, like, routine of already, like, I normally take just straight vitamin C, so it's nice to have, like, extra supplements.
For a long time, people have praised the benefits of apple cider vinegar. And, you know, as someone who's had to, like, drink straight apple cider vinegar sometimes when I'm not feeling well, or, you know, I have some joint pain and your mom is like, drink some apple cider vinegar. It's not the most appetizing home remedy, let's just say.
Right.
It tastes horrible.
So, like, the apple cider part is like, ooh, does it taste like apple cider? And it's like, no, it tastes like vinegar. But ACV is very good for you. And the fact that Goalie has been able to put the ACV into these tasty little gummies made with pectin and fruit peels, which make them vegan, which is cool. So if you're vegan, you can still rock these gummies, because everyone knows gummies are usually made out of, like, gelatin and nasty shit. These are made out of complete non-GMO, gelatin-free, gluten-free, vegan ingredients, and you can get the benefits, all of the benefits of apple cider vinegar, taking these tasty, delicious, convenient gummies. So go to Goli.com and use the code HARDKNOCK. That's HARDNOC, just like the podcast you're listening to. Get 10% off your purchase of Goli products and free shipping.
It's a much better delivery device for that apple cider vinegar.
Yeah.
These Goli gummies are great. You get it, and it's a
100.
delicious little candy. And I've been enjoying the Superfruits one. I did feel kind of refreshed after taking a few of those.
Yeah, no, but I'm loving them so far, and they're definitely tasty. If you just want tasty gummies, at least just eat them for the yumminess.
Yeah. So go to Goli.com, use the code HARDKNOCK, HARDNOC, get 10% off your purchase and free shipping at Goli.com with the code HARDKNOCK. Hard Knock Life is being sponsored by Athletic Greens. I want to talk to you about Athletic Greens. With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. Basically all the things. One of the best things about Athletic Greens is that it's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It also contains less than 1 gram of sugar and no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, and it still tastes good. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science with constant product iterations and third-party testing. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day, that's it. No need for a million different pills or supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is partnering with Hard Knock Media to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/emerging. That's athleticgreens.com/emerging to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So we're halfway through Obi-Wan Kenobi already, which is wild. I feel like the show just started and there's only 3 episodes left. Do you think this is going to be one and done, or do you feel like it's going to be such a big hit, you and folks will find a way to come back?
Didn't they just announce through Variety that they're working on an Obi-Wan Kenobi 2? They just don't know exactly the full details yet?
I did read somewhere Ewan kind of hinted at more Obi-Wan perhaps coming in the future. But, like, where could the story go? Like, you're kind of treading on, weird ground. I mean, put it this way. I know I've been making a lot of, like, points about continuity, but at the same time, I think I heard Mark Bernardin say this on a podcast, and he was quoting Len Wein, the old Wolverine writer, that continuity is your friend until it isn't. And that you shouldn't be a slave to continuity. I mean, now I'm paraphrasing, but essentially you shouldn't be a slave to continuity if the story will benefit by breaking continuity. At the end of the day, I think too often, especially like genre fans like us, and Star Wars fans, Star Trek fans, Marvel fans, like we get so bogged down and like, well, this has to fit here, and that we kind of like forget about like narrative and storytelling, that we just worry about like plot points and. Like, it's as if it's all one big Wikipedia entry and not, like, a story. Because George Lucas didn't give a shit about continuity in the original trilogy. Right. He was making that shit up as he went along,
But at the same time, let's not, like, fetishize our need to have, like, will it be season 2? And, I mean, when we don't even know what the story of this season is. I mean, that's another fan tick, I'll point out. Like, will it be season 2 or 3? I don't know, dude. What if they all die? Let's watch this season. But that's just me.
What if season 2 is just live action flashbacks to the Clone Wars? That's what I would like.
I would be fine with that. I'm kind of hoping that we will get at least some live action flashbacks. I don't know. So I don't know if the moment where he sees Anakin for a second standing on like towards that cliff is like the only time that he was in normal clothes. But I know Ewan said that there was something that they were filming that he looked over at Hayden and felt like
that's true. That might have been the scene you've been referencing for the last 6 months, like when he's standing in his robe.
Yeah,
because it is kind of like. Let me ask you, Brittany, as a Hayden stan, as the resident Hayden stan on the podcast. They'd been hyping up for ever since they announced the show, like the return of Hayden. And then you don't, other than the like 3 seconds you see the vision, it's like Darth Vader and James Earl Jones. Like there isn't any like actual Hayden even if he's under the suit, it's more of a Pedro
Mm-hmm.
Pascal thing, right? Where you never see him, and unlike Pedro, you don't actually hear him either. Either his voice is being filtered through a James Earl Jones filter, or he's not even doing any dialogue. So, as the Hayden stan, do you feel a little let down that like they've been hyping Hayden's return, and then we
No.
don't actually see Hayden's beautiful visage at all?
Because I knew he was going to be in the suit most of the time, and that we would get flashbacks, if anything, or like we saw like Obi-Wan just kind of thinking he saw him. So I kind of knew that it would be more of him in the suit than anything. So I think they're probably doing what they normally do with like when they do Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of like Sean Gunn is like Raccoon on set, and he's doing all the dialogue on set, but then in post it's Bradley Cooper. So it's probably Hayden actually talking and having dialogue with Ewan or whoever he's having scenes with, and then in post they do the voice modulation and stuff like that. So I feel like he's actually acting in there, so it's fine.
Those scenes are still forthcoming, I think the big Hayden Christensen scenes are not yet seen yet.
And at the very least, we get to see him in the Bacta tank. So like, it's not like Hayden's not in the show at all, right? Like there's been more scenes of Hayden's face than Pedro Pascal's face in 3 seasons of The Mandalorian. Thinking back to what we were just saying, I know that I was just admonished by Dominic about thinking about the future. But what do we want to see in the last 3 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi? Because just to set the stakes, Reva has now gotten possession of Leia. Obi-Wan has just gotten his ass beat by Vader. He's burnt, not as crispy as Anakin, but he's pretty burnt. Tala is nursing him back to health. We forgot to mention the newest adorable droid to be added to the Star Wars family, the loader droid who was like ready to hammer some stormtroopers.
Was it Ned B?
Ned B or something like that. Yeah. So like we've gotten Lola, and now we have Ned B. Ned B is more of like the K2SO of this series.
But he doesn't talk.
It doesn't talk.
But he has the most
like
guy in a suit physicality of any
droid
droid you receive. Like
Yeah.
he just moves like a human. He doesn't even do the C-3PO walk.
Well, which is cool though, because like I think for like the last, I guess BB-8 was practical, but not humanoid at all. At least R2-D2 even had Kenny Baker in the suit. Like it's kind of nice. It's kind of a throwback to go back to like guy in a suit droid than just total CGI or animatronic droid.
Yeah. I'm just saying that whatever that line of droid really gets the human motion really well, better than any other Star Wars droid that I'm familiar with. Again, getting sidelined on technical details. What we're talking about.
Well, no, but that's kind of
droid.
the appeal. That's the appeal too of the show. Just like the production value and just how well crafted it is. We said this the first episode. Like there is no drop off from the movies in terms of like cinematic quality to the show. And that's unique to at least the Star Wars shows. But where do we see the next 3 episodes going? Because again, Obi-Wan seems like he's down and out. Leia's been kidnapped. Do we feel like is there going to be a redemption arc for Reva, or is there going to be like she's going to be defeated as the villain?
I kind of hope she gets a redemption arc because she, to me, mirrors a lot of, like, Kylo and even Anakin's story. They're both very ambitious. They were both wronged. And all of them were wronged in some way by someone who they thought wouldn't let them down and did. And they have a lot of anger and hatred for that. So I don't know. I just hope that she does get a proper redemption arc and they don't do the whole death redemption because I'm tired of death redemption. So I hope she gets a decent arc, but I'm looking for her to really square up against Obi-Wan though.
Yeah, that's coming. That's what I said earlier. That's why I feel like the narrative of the show is actually, to me, feels like it's leading up to more of a Reva Obi-Wan showdown than even a Vader. Especially when it happened in this episode, I was like, oh, they're setting up Reva to be like, that's the big lightsaber duel at the end of the show is Reva and Obi, probably for Leia. Like he's gonna defeat Reva to get to Leia, and that's how the show ends. Again, I know I was saying I'm not a stickler for continuity, but it does take me back to that another line in A New Hope where Vader says to Obi-Wan, the last time we saw each other I was the learner, but now I'm the master. Because that motherfucker was the master when they fought
so
just now.
Maybe that line doesn't make literal sense anymore, but that one we can let go. I mean,
Or maybe he was being sarcastic. Remember that last time I beat your ass?
right, right. I'm so
When
much.
I was the learner.
I'm even better now. Yeah, that one would. I'm just not gonna get hung up on that one. As far as where this series is going, I mean, Obi-Wan needs to have his redemptive moment, because otherwise this is very like this is like most passive, like kind of sad Obi-Wan thing ever. But what's interesting is he needs to have his redemptive moment, but we know it isn't like a fully, you know, a fully realized moment, because we know where he ends up before New Hope again. It does fail again at some point. So we need to see this sort of, you know, this sort of qualified redemption of like a guy who's like, well, gonna go out and do this good thing because I gotta, but I am gonna end up going back in the desert and being recluse for another 10 years. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. You know, probably.
But at least he'll be in touch with the Force. I think that's probably the big redemption for Obi-Wan in this series is he regains access to the Force, because he's Force sensitive again in A New Hope. At least he can sense the destruction of Alderaan. He can sense, you know, more things, and he can do Jedi mind tricks and stuff. Whereas now he's like, he can barely hold a lightsaber. He barely lifted a 10-year-old girl off the ground, you know, so like...
Yeah, and he's using a blaster all the time, which he used to think were so barbaric.
Uncivilized blasters,
But, and I do think it has something to do with Qui-Gon, right? I mean, we haven't... Have we seen that scene in any of the books or animated shows?
Qui-Gon.
Where...
Chekhov's Qui-Gon. Like, they... From the moment that they used that sequence in the previously on, when they were like, teach you I will, and like Yoda telling him that like I can commune with Qui-Gon, that's clearly going to happen. There's going to be a Liam Neeson cameo, and hell, Atlanta brought Liam Neeson in for like a 5-minute cameo in one of its episodes this season. So like Liam is available
as a Force ghost, or
yeah.
I mean,
so Liam is totally available,
and that's pretty right. And just to get meta for a second, I do think it's funny how Obi-Wan's trying to communicate with, you know, Liam Neeson based on this crisis of having to rescue a young girl, because, you know, Liam Neeson has a very special skill set from being the guy in Taken. So maybe that's what he really needs consult from Qui-Gon for.
That's a great observation.
But that probably has something to do with him, you know, having a moment of reawakening. Oh, I'm with the Force again. Oh, wait, here's Darth Vader again. I'm going to go run and hide for a while. But I do feel better about myself as a person.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, we are halfway through Obi-Wan, and now the cool thing about this week is we're getting episode 4 of Obi-Wan and Ms. Marvel, so it's going to be like double the pleasure, double the fun, because we're getting the double dose on June 8th.
It's going to be a kid show, folks. I'm really thinking it's going to be a very kid show, and I'm not saying that's in a bad
I'm here
way.
for it. You know, they released a clip earlier this week with her parents, and I thought it was adorable. A lot of people are complaining it looks like a kid show. I'm like, Ms. Marvel needs to be a kid show. Like, if anything, if the Ms. Marvel show was this dark, gritty, like brutal Netflix thing, it'd be like, that would be Marvel pretending to be DC, because that's DC's bag. DC's bag is to take kid characters and give you brutal hyper violence. You know, like,
Titans.
Titans. I'm talking about you. when like Titans is the biggest kids property out on DC right now, and they're like, let's have garden shears up someone's crotch. It's just not, you don't know your audience.
Yeah. Miss Marvel, none of that, and appropriately so. I was not saying that's sincere criticism, was just preparing to be in the right frame of mind for it. Miss Marvel should be a kid show.
Am I to assume Ms. Marvel will be your nerd popping this week?
No. I mean, yes, it's nerd popping. I was going to say the Warriors are in the finals. That's my nerd popping. It's not very.
Yeah. Well, they did lose game 1, and as of this recording, we don't know if they're going to lose game 2.
Yeah, it was terrible game, but it's cool that they're against Celtics. I'm sorry. Did you want to? Was that do you want me to say something about Miss Marvel? Or did you want?
No. I just thought that perhaps that would be your nerd poppin', since we're now at the nerd poppin' section of the podcast. Brittany Monet, what's nerd poppin' for you? You want to talk about the Thor trailer real quick?
It looks exciting. I think.
Speaking of
Christian
Natalie
Bale.
Portman.
Yeah.
Christian Bale looks very cool. I'm very excited. I know some people are upset that he doesn't look exactly like Gorg from the comics, but I don't care. He looks... Yeah. I like the contrast of, like, everything else being bright and kind of happy and hopeful, and then he's just, like, devoid of all of that.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a very cool contrast.
Give me Volda Batman, dude. I will... I just need me some Volda Batman. there's a meme going around of Michael Keaton and Christian Bale, and then the line from Dark Knight: "You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the Marvel villain." Is what's happening. So we just need a Ben Affleck, a George Clooney, and a Robert Pattinson Marvel villain. And Val Kilmer needs to come back and be a Marvel villain. We'll just have all of the Batman become Marvel villains.
The Serpent Society, man. Frightful Four.
Yeah, there you go. I have an anti-nerd popping, and that's the Gotham Knights trailer. Did you guys see that? Oh my god.
No.
What the fuck?
It's so bad.
I'm very... go on.
The Gotham Knights CW show, not the video game, Dominic.
I'm very excited about the video game.
Excited
Video game
about
has a different set of problems. But yeah, the show, I have no idea who those people are mainly for.
And who is it for? Like, why would you cancel a show about Gotham City post-Batman and a team of heroes uniting to fight crime in Gotham City once Batman's gone, to give us a show about the death of Batman and a team of heroes having to unite to fight crime in a city without Batman? Like, just give us season 3 of Batwoman, dude. Like, what is going... Or season 4. What, like...
It makes no sense. It's
other
so
than
dumb.
we need a straight white dude as the lead. That's the only thing I can think of why you would cancel Batwoman and give us Gotham Knights.
Yeah,
Okay,
pretty much.
But just to argue this point based on things I haven't read, is this not in the vein of the young adults books and stuff that they've been trying to sell lately as part of the Batman universe?
Well, apparently they made up a whole entire new character too, so the kid isn't actually like anyone from the comics. So I don't know.
He's one of Bruce's adopted kids, but he's not Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, or Tim Drake. I don't know. It just looks bad. It looks like the budget is not there. Like, my thing is, if CW is going around canceling DC shows that people actually cared about, like Legends or Naomi or Batwoman, why not just like give us one more season of any one of those shows? Because, like, I was thinking we're just getting out of the DC game, fine, you know? But we're giving you this. And I don't care that it's not Arrowverse. I don't care. My thing is, like, you're just giving us Batwoman filtered through some bullshit is all I'm saying. Like, just give us Batwoman again if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Gotham, not. The video game is a whole different set of problems, which I'll rant about later.
Nice.
But
that's for next time.
They're different problems, not the problem you rightfully pointing out.
That's Nerd Poppin'. That's Hard Knock Life. Brittany Monet, how can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hi Brittany Monet. You can check out also at Naomi Podcast for Naomi Podcast, the backlog of Black Lightning, as well as the Lituation Room.
Dominic Ma.
Oh, on Twitter, Instagram, I'm Dama, DOMMAH, Dominic Ma.
You can find me on Twitter at @TheRealChow, _real_Chow, and on Instagram at RealKeithChow. Follow the Nerds of Color at the Nerds of Color. Go to hardknockmedia.com to find this and all the podcasts in the Hard Knock family. Give us a rating and a review if you do. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thenerdsofcolor, and watch our videos at youtube.com/thenerdsofcolor. And until next time.
Sweet child of mine. That's what I want to talk about.